I am now doing. And I guess the first item that we need to deal with is the roll call.
Commissioner Arata?
Present.
Commissioner Bajaj?
Present.
Commissioner Funabashi?
Present.
Commissioner Nafisi?
Here.
Commissioner Glass?
Here.
Commissioner Min?
Here.
Chair Simpson?
I am here. I guess we now salute the flag. Commissioner Glass, can you lead us in the pledge?
I could try. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are we happy with the order of the agenda? Can we get a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion to approve the order.
A second?
done.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any blue folder items?
There are no blue folder items.
Okay, we now move to the consent calendar, which includes the affidavit of posting, meeting minutes, and receiving and filing the updates to the 12-month strategic plan. Does anybody want to talk about any of those individually, or are we willing to vote on that all together? Consent calendar. Yes, so for that, okay. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on the consent calendar or items on it? Seeing no requests for that. Any e-comments on the consent calendar? I would think not. but
There's no e-comments.
you have to ask. Okay, can we get a motion then to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Glass, seconds. I think we can just do this by a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, now this is the time, there are quite a number of you out there, but I suspect you all came to speak about something that is on the agenda. However, if there is something else that you would like to address the commission about that is not on the agenda, now is the time to do it. Does anyone care to comment on anything that is not on the agenda? Please.
Good evening. My name is Ron Morocco. I spoke to this commission on February 27, 2023, requesting your assistance in locating a missing historic display case that Public Works purportedly removed from the Historic Museum. I also inquired back here on April 24th at this commission meeting. I've had to put in 2 public record requests to find out what's gone on with it. And the first one was responded to by Gary Margolis of the Community Services Department and did not include a Public Works response. So I had to actually put in a second, specifically one directed towards Public Works, which was responded to last week. And the public records request says that I need to ask you any questions about it. So I'm here today to ask you about it. Here was what I know about this removal. Gary Margolis, who is the person with the Community Service Department, requested that Public Works remove a 500-pound display case in February. That's why I came to talk to you about. Public Works confirmed that they would remove it. And at the Historical Commission meeting in February, Mr. Margolis said that he told Public Works not to destroy it. So, and the fourth thing I know is the display case is no longer in the museum, but nobody in this city knows what happened to it or where it is, which is why I put in the public records request. And I'm still trying to get a basic answer. Did Public Works remove this display case from the museum? When did they remove it? And what did they do with it? Did they put it in storage as it was requested? Did they destroy it? What happened to it? It's 500 pounds, so it's a team lift effort. It should be some sort of record. And what I have learned is that there is no formal work order to do it. There is no work completion order to do it. And what I'm hoping that somebody can tell me what happened to it. Mr. Margolis wrote to the Public Works people that said, and I quote, "Could you please let me know when the removal will happen so I can empty it out ahead of time?" As far as I can see from any of the public records, there is no communication back from Public Works with regards to that. So Mr. Simon, I'm hoping you're able to at least tell me when it was removed from the museum and what happened to it. That's all I'm asking for today. Your records have come up sufficient. This is not the first time where there has not been a work order for something that you would anticipate to be a work order. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I guess we now move to items J for discussion prior to action. J1, public.
Chairperson, before we do that, just wanted to ask Lauren for the record, anyone on Zoom or otherwise that wanted to speak?
Not on non-agendized, no.
Thank you.
Non-agenda items.
Do we have some comments for agenda items possibly? Well, we'll get there when we get there. So I guess we're ready for item J1.
We are, and I will take that over.
Do I have to open a public hearing? I mean, this is a little more than we normally do, isn't it? I mean,
You do. Unfortunately, yes, this is something that per the code, we do have to conduct a public hearing, a formal public hearing, which this is still. We have to advertise it as a public hearing, and the procedures are on the screen to open the public hearing, close the public hearing, and then we'll go through the recommendations. With the opening of the public hearing, we're going to go ahead and give you the presentation. During that time frame, you will also be asking for the residents for any input that they may have. Deliberate amongst yourselves, close the public hearing, and then make a recommendation.
okay, so I call the public hearing to order or open it?
Motion to open the public
Yeah, I
hearing.
have a motion to open the public hearing. Can I get such a motion?
I'll make a motion to open it.
Commissioner Fazee, and the second? Commissioner Arata, you second?
Yes.
Okay, we got that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the public hearing is open. We are now getting the presentation.
You will get a presentation from
Okay.
us. Lauren? Again, thank you, Chairperson. Again, for the record, Ted Simon, Public Works Director. Item J1 is for the request for preferential permit parking or creation of a preferential parking zone on the 500 block of North Gertruda, or a portion of the 500 block of North Gertruda. We just went through the process by opening the public hearing, which we will eventually be closing. We have recommendations as part of the AR to either support the request for the preferential parking zone and advance that to the city council. If the answer is yes, we would like to hear from you if there are potential other changes to the parking that is out there today. Modifications of the current parking time. There are 4-hour parking restrictions that are in place aside from the street sweeping that would have to be considered, and then any other suggestions. So that's just procedurally how we're going to be moving forward. The preferential parking zones are in our municipal code. As you can see it on your screen, it itemizes where the elements are that we have to look for. They are called commuter vehicles, and that's to differentiate any vehicle that is a non-resident vehicle that's within the block that's requesting. In this particular case, we have commercial properties that are in the area, and therefore users of those commercial properties are not necessarily identified as residents, and you will hear us refer to them as commuter vehicles without confirmation that those are either employees or visitors of those particular businesses. The process itself is that the residents do ask through a petition with supporting signatures of 2/3 of the occupants of those dwellings that are there within the proposed zone. City staff will conduct the survey to show that 75, will do field surveys to confirm if 75% of the available spaces are occupied, and if they are, to what level are they occupied by residents of that location or the block, and if 25% of those spaces are occupied by non-residents, or greater than that, to what level that impact is going to be. The survey conditions in this case did meet the recommendations of the process, and we're bringing it to you for consideration through the public hearing. In this particular zone, in this particular location, the street block is to the west side of Pacific Coast Highway, therefore it's in the coastal zone. And because it's in the coastal zone, it has to potentially be considered by the Coastal Commission if we go to try to consider that. The Public Works Commission would make a recommendation to the City Council, and that recommendation, if it is in support of the preferential parking, then the City Council will get to deliberate the idea, make a determination, and then we would be going to Coastal Commission for their support and approval. As we said before, the petition received, did get more than 75% of the signatures in support. And we're going to show you maps in a minute here. It is the southerly portion of the block. If any of you have visited my office, it's at the Public Works Yard on North Gertruda. These are the properties to the south of the city property that's there. And the request is for no parking except by permit between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. 7 days a week. As I said earlier, the portion of the block is fronted by both residential and commercial properties. This is a graphical depiction of not only the land uses that are there, but also the parking limitations that are there. Street sweeping occurs Friday mornings on everything to the north of the, sort of call it the peach colored area or the orange colored area, between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. The 500 block is more of the magenta or the purple colored area to the south. That has 2 different days of street sweeping. On one side, it's Friday morning between 8 and 10 a.m. On the opposite side, it's Thursday morning between 8 and 10 a.m. There are some segments of red curb. There is 1 handicap parking space in front of one of the residential properties. And then there are the 4-hour parking restrictions. That's a parking limit within that area between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m.
You're limited to just 4 hours.
Limited to just 4 hours, yes. But part of the image, we also wanted to show how the residential properties are not on one side of the street. They are mixed essentially with the commercial properties on both sides of the street. Staff did and performed 5 days of surveys, and we did it at various hours of the day. We collected it at three times in the morning, the midday, and the afternoon and the evening. The license plates were collected by our staff, and we went to the police department to only get a confirmation whether the vehicle's license that we took down does live in that block or does not live in the block. They don't give us any other information, but it's just a confirmation whether that vehicle is registered to that block or not. And approximately 28 spaces are available, 13 in front of the residential parcels, and the analysis was performed for all 28 spaces and for the 13 residential properties. So what you'll see is that that analysis was looked at for the entire purple area, shaded area. In one essence, we looked at it strictly in front of the residential properties. And the second method, we looked at it for the entire block, for the entire 500 block. These are the findings. And what we see from the findings, when we look at the entire cul-de-sac, morning and evening hours are impacted, but they are not impacted beyond the 75% of available parking. At noontime or midday, we see that impact occurring, and that's why we say yes on the very right-hand columns where we say it's greater than 75%. The answer is yes during the midday, and the non-resident parking for the 28 spaces in total is impacted slightly in the evening and primarily in the midday. When we consider just the residential properties by themselves, we can also see that it's impacted at the midday hour. So this is primarily a midday problem, which we're assuming is being created by a couple of the businesses. One of them is the restaurant at the southerly tip that's shaded in a triangular parcel. We know they get a lot of patrons that come there. And then there's a auto repair shop that's nestled between or just about where the handicap parking space is shown. We know that they bring vehicles in and out of their shop for service, for other, so we know they have an impact on the street. So other considerations, impacts to midday parking in other areas. We did have to look at that, what would that do to the parking in the area? Are those legitimate expectations in front of the commercial properties? And then what potential solutions there are. As I mentioned, this is in the coastal zone. If it is supported by the commission and then the city council also supports it, we would have to go through a coastal development permit application to the coastal commission. We must find that there's no impeded access to the coast itself because that's under the Coastal Act, and that the commission staff itself was not optimistic when we talked to them. We were talking to them about a different topic, and we brought up this potential permit parking zone area or preferential parking zone area, and they shy away from having preferential parking in anything that's in the coastal zone. And then I just wanted to add on and to say that for us as staff, when we do such an analysis, in my experience, in many cases where you have an overflow or an impact and the request for preferential parking, it's because there's either a commercial corridor nearby or some other operation that's occurring on a nearby street that causes the overflow of vehicles onto the residential neighborhood. In this particular case, the southerly portion, the 500 block of North Gertruda, has both commercial and residential properties commingled together. The commercial properties that front with an address on Pacific Coast Highway also have frontage without addresses on the North Gertruda side. So from our perspective, we've got to be fair to all users of the road, whether they're residential customers or commercial customers. They are not on a street that's a block away from the commercial zone, and therefore we bring this to you with the neutral approach that says, you give us some guidance on what the next steps should be. So as I said, recommendations, should they be taken to the city council? That would be a determination we're going to ask you for. The parking restrictions, as we said, aside from street sweeping, there are currently 4-hour parking limitations. Is that adequate? Should that be modified? That's a consideration that the commission may have. If this impact is occurring from either the restaurant and or the auto shop, and it's the commission's recommendation to consider a 1-hour or 2-hour parking limitation that may get those vehicles to circulate faster rather than being stored on the street for extended periods of time, and that would still offer the residents the ability to have some of that parking come around without having to enforce a preferential parking zone. So we wanted to bring this to you, outline sort of what the findings are by the staff, where we see the impact, which, like I said earlier, is occurring during the middle of the day, and give you the opportunity to not only listen to the residents, but ponder over these suggestions, give us your feedback on it, and we'll go to the next steps after that.
Thank you. So I guess we now take testimony from.
Sure, you may, discuss it first, ask for public testimony, and
We want to talk about it a little bit first. Anybody have any questions or thoughts that they'd like to raise at this point?
I'd like to hear the comments from the audience.
We have
You have a question?
I do.
Yes, please.
Do we know anything about who's parking there? I know you broke it down by commercial users, but is it like students from the high school? Like do we know anything about who's parking there?
we don't know.
Obviously not the residents.
Yeah, we
but-
don't know. In the preferential parking, we're primarily looking for the ratio of residents to non-residents. The police department, from a security and other perspectives and private rights for individuals, they do not give us the location or where the address belongs to. All they tell us is, yes, it is in that particular block, or no, it is not.
Oh,
So we don't
interesting.
know any further information
So,
about
I
that.
mean, the concern then is we want this preferential parking because these other cars are there taking away spaces? Is that the idea?
That's the concern that the residents are bringing and requesting the preferential parking zone for.
So I just wanted to confirm, so the majority of the residents I mean, the majority of the cars that are parked there during the day are not from the people that live there.
So-
Are you telling me that you can confirm that or not confirm that?
During our
During the
midday,
day.
during our midday,
Do
right,
not live there?
they are not local residents.
Okay.
That is correct.
During
Okay.
midday.
Midday, okay.
Commissioner Bajaj.
You said that there was a body shop that's there and they might be moving vehicles around and, maybe staging vehicles. Has there already been an effort for increased enforcement to apply the 4-hour restriction that's existing?
We're not certain if the police department has been doing that, and that is something that we can ask them to support as well.
Now, the 4-hour restriction that's in existence, that applies to the residents right now,
It
correct?
applies to everyone that works there, correct?
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? I guess we should go now to public comment. Do we have a list of people that have wanted to comment, or?
Right, Solomon,
Good evening and thank you for your time. My name is Solomon Kang and I'm a longtime resident of Redondo Beach, a city that I love, and I own several homes here. One of the homes that I own and where I currently live is on the 500 block of North Gertrudo. I'm here this evening along with many of my neighbors to address the parking issue in our neighborhood. Because we live in a mix of commercial and residential, this has presented many issues resulting in a lack of parking, which is why we are here tonight asking for your help in finding a solution. We, the residents, struggle to find parking on a daily basis because there are so many employees and patrons of nearby businesses, and it all converges in one small area, referred to as like the south area of what we're discussing here. Namely, employees and patrons of Beach Cities Rover, Eurosport, Navigo, Just Poke, Kim's Acupuncture Clinic, and Public Works. In order to paint a picture of the situation, on any given weekday, there are several non-residents who will occupy street parking as early as around 7 a.m. and they stay there, park there until maybe about 5 p.m. or later. And then any of the small number of parking spots that do become available, those are usually taken by the cars from the auto repair shops that are waiting to get repaired. And then on street cleaning days, the lack of parking, of course, this is just amplified. Due to the lack of parking, we are constantly witness to non-resident cars that are blocking driveways, parking in red zones, parking in a handicap spot that you mentioned, and sometimes parked in the middle of the street. This issue also extends beyond parking during the day, as there are always non-resident cars that are parked overnight, over the weekend, and sometimes for several nights at a time. I personally had to call Redondo Beach Parking Enforcement many times to report overnight parking from non-residents. The 500 block of North Gertrudo has literally become a free short-term and long-term parking lot that is being overtaken and taken advantage of by business employees and their patrons. Unfortunately, there seems to be a disregard for the residents by some of these businesses. We, the residents, don't believe that we're asking for anything unreasonable to implement preferential parking in the south area of the 500 block of North Gertrudo. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
is it Brad Horn? Or
Hello.
Hi.
So I could regurgitate what my neighbor and friend Solomon said, but I'm going to answer a couple of questions that I heard y'all talking about. The 4-hour parking is very limited in the spaces on the south end of Gertruda. It is not all along the odd numbered block, horrible with north-south, I'm sorry. And across the street from the 515 portion, those are not 4 hours. It's just a small portion down where the restaurants are, which isn't horrible. What we do see what is happening is, and I'm sorry, the auto dealership right there, what we find a lot is they will take the cars out and they will move it into half a space for one car, half a space for another car to block so that they can keep rotating their cars in and out, and is just taking away all of our parking. They will come in, even today, I'm parking outside they're dropping off a Jeep and the guy's yelling at me to move my effing car because he's got to park that car there overnight because it's going to get repaired on. These businesses, they have their own parking lots. The auto repair has many spots inside to place cars. The other businesses have parking lots that they can put their cars as well, but they're just taking our spots. They're causing a lot of mayhem. But we're also finding cars are speeding down. There's also not enough signage saying it's a dead end, which I would like to add to it. Speeding down, they can't find parking because there's so many parking spots. They speed away. He has children, we have children, we all like to play. It's very dangerous. They're going 35, 45 miles an hour up and down looking for parking. They get upset, there's no parking. That's why we'd like to have this area preferential, and we hope that you see it our way. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for the cards, but
Okay, anyone else wish to address the commission? It's your name, please?
Hello, good evening. My name is Carl Henkel, and I live on the block as well.
See how you got the timer going? It was, yep, 3 minutes.
Okay. I don't have too much to say. I just kind of wanted to maybe clarify. To me, it seems like the 4-hour parking is never respected. There's no one ever there to check whether we got 4 hours parking. But for residents, that's not a really great solution anyway. We like that we can park our car there all day and all night. We live there. We'd have to move it all the time. So maybe there's a solution there that you guys can figure out to help us. But really what's going on, I think has already been highlighted, is that the auto companies are parking their cars and waiting for their fixes of their cars. And they'll park 8 or 9 cars at times between the Rover and the Autosport, and they'll take up a lot of spots. The Public Works, Redondo, their guys come down and park and leave their car all day as well. And then you have the in and out traffic at the Pokey Place, which has its own parking lot on PCH. There was also parking on PCH, but they use that to come to Pokey. But they're quick, they're in and out, so it's not so bad with the Pokey, but with the, all day, it really leaves us with nowhere to park. Okay. And then, we've lived here for 10 years and no one really parks their car to go to the beach there. So the Coastal Commission, I know that's probably a tough issue for you guys, but really it's at the farthest eastern extent of the coastal zone, right? But I know that's probably going to be trouble for you guys, but no one ever really parks there and goes to the beach. And I've noticed in 10 years. Yeah. I think that's about it. Yeah, it's just really has been very onerous on us to be able to park our cars. And with all of those entities parking their cars there, it's, if you could help us find a solution, we'd be very grateful. Okay, that's it. Oh, did you have any questions, by the way? Maybe from a resident, we could answer something.
I have a question, and
Yeah.
you addressed it, I believe, parking control.
Yeah.
You called them. Have they been responsive?
Well, I haven't called them.
Okay.
Solomon can answer that.
And have they been responsive and come out and since it's a 4-hour limit, do they come out and check it?
Mr. Solomon, I'm sorry, if you're going to need to speak, you need to come back up to the podium and introduce yourself.
Sure. Solomon Kang. So to clarify, the times that I've called enforcement have been around the vehicles that have been left overnight for several days. And yes, they have been responsive. I think the process is if a vehicle has been left overnight, I think it's for 3 days, or 3 nights, that's when it can get towed away. So people who have figured out that loophole, they'll park for 3 nights, knowing that their vehicle is only going to get tagged, and then they'll move it. So literally, if they move it across the street, they can do it again.
True. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Just, now, what you want is preferential parking from when till when?
I mean, I would just like to come home and be able to find a spot and leave my car like a normal residential street. I understand that.
So you want the whole area to
commercial
be
businesses.
preferential parking and no other parking there?
I don't think that's fair, but we're here to ask you guys if you guys know a solution, because for the residents, it's really become a pain. And we've dealt with it for years, but it became much, much worse the auto companies that repair cars really started sort of taking advantage of the situation and moving a lot of cars on the street. And because there's no 4-hour enforcement, they just leave them there for days. And then there's absolutely no parking for any of us or very few spots.
Because
And then when the day comes in and the pokey people come to pokey, then there's really no spaces for all of us. And so I think he's prepared a solution, and that's wonderful, but, we're just here to say there's a problem. Can you help us fix it?
Okay.
Chairperson Simpson, if I may clarify, the request is to have the preferential parking zones from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
That's in the report.
8 a.m. until 10
Yeah,
p.m.
that's what I recall. Yeah, okay, that's the request. All
Okay.
right, then,
Thank you.
other comments from the audience? Any other public?
Mr. Solomon, you may not unless they have questions for you.
Yes, please.
And also, you had your time, that's the issue. If they have questions for you, then we have. Yeah,
Commissioner Arado,
you haven't
you
come
have a
up yet.
question?
I do. I just have a question for Solomon.
Yes.
So you said they tag the vehicle. Is the tag a citation?
It's not a citation.
No, it's a warning.
It's a warning.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there is a paper warning, but essentially what they do is they will, with the piece of paper, they'll state, hey, we've noticed your vehicle is here.
Okay.
And it will be moved.
It's because they have to verify it's been there X amount of hours. And so whenever they get there, that's like the marker that they verified it with their eyes and they come back in like 2 to 3 days.
You can answer
But
their
most of the
question.
time,
That's it.
most of the time, the residents have already called and it's been there an extended period of
And they
time.
will chalk on the ground occasionally to mark, when they first come out.
Right.
So they're chalking it, they're just not coming
But that
back for
doesn't help that
enforcement.
somebody said here, if whoever owns that vehicle or is responsible for it simply takes it and moves it one space, then it's in a new spot, the clock starts again. That's the way the ordinance is currently written.
Okay.
Am I allowed to just make one additional comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so just to clarify, the preferential parking that we're asking for is on the south end of the 500 block of North Kotruda. On the north end, which is where many of the public works.
City's public work yard is there.
Exactly. There's a ton of parking there. And so we're not saying that that entire block, give us that entire block. That I feel like would be the compromise. The residents take up most of that south side. The north side, it's not residential. From Public Works all the way down to Catalina. And there's a bunch of street parking there. But what's happening is we, the residents, are now having to, if we can even find a spot, go over there. But I don't.
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes were actually up and we're not reopening.
Okay,
The answer.
thank you. Yes, please.
Hi, Kevin Cook. I live on North Kotruda as well. One thing I just wanted to address that wasn't addressed. I work from home and I have a daughter that I have to take to school and pick up from school. And very often when I leave in the morning to take her to school, by the time I get back, there's no parking left. So now I have to drive around and usually park way down the street or around the corner to get back home. And then it's the same thing when I have to go pick her up from school. It's the same situation. If I'm lucky enough to get a spot, if I leave, I know I'm not going to get that spot back. When I come back, it's a roll of the dice. There's times where I have to sit out in front of my house, maybe wait and see. I'll give it like 5 minutes to see if somebody will leave. If they don't, then I'll just go park around the corner, around the block. So just something I just wanted to add that to.
I did have a question of you and your neighbors. How many off-street parking spaces do you have attached to the property you own?
I don't have any. I don't have a spot.
And because that's always a concern, and we've seen this as a commission grow over the years, that many units will have off-street parking, but they're using it for other purposes, and so you forced yourself to find a spot on the street.
Right, yeah.
And even in my neighborhood in North Redondo, parking we understand the issue, the problem. But that's the only question I had of you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, my wife and I, we each have a car. She's a teacher, and so she's gone during the day, but she's in the same boat when she gets home from school. It's kind of the same situation where.
No off-street parking for your home. Okay.
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other people who'd like to comment?
So I can answer that question about the off-street parking.
Can you give
I have
us your
a-
name, please?
Mike Brown. I live on that street. So I have a F-150, it's 20 foot 6 inches. My garage is only 20 foot deep. So if I pull the bumper all the way and touch the drywall at the far end, I can't close the garage.
Yeah.
So there's some vehicles that won't fit. I don't know if that's by code or what. But also how they're saying there's a lot of parking down the street by the yard. There's plenty of parking down there, but it's the car guys that are sucking up all the spots and dominating basically. So they have guys that are 8 to 5 and they could come out, and as soon as they see a spot, a lot of times they'll take and occupy it. And then I think in order to try to service their customers, I don't think they want to park the car further down the street. So they park it all in front of our houses instead of down by the city yard, which would be great for us because then we'd leave a lot more spots for us. And Pokey's, those people come and go. It's the car guys that have ended up just dominating. You know how, even when the street sweeper goes by, they get by there about 8:30. And then at 8:30, everybody comes out, the car guys will get in the middle of the street. As soon as the street sweeper goes by, they'll park right away because everyone knows you won't get a ticket after the street sweeper goes by. What else? I saw I'm working on a street on 1309 Clark right now. It says parking by permit only, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., except holidays, RBMC 371705 or something. So anyway, that would be great for us because really the problem we have is the guys that show up, the city guys aren't the problem. Only a couple of them park down our way. The rest park all by the city yard. It's the guys that get to the Range Rover place at like 7:30 or the Mercedes place. 7:30, 8 o'clock, like Kevin said, there's nowhere to park. At 8 o'clock, good luck. And then the guys that are parking there, they will all want to park. Some of them do park somewhere else, but some of them park right in front of the house. And then they leave, cars get towed there. We got our streets resurfaced just a couple years ago. I have pictures of all the oil spots and stuff, and that you can see there's like drips out of the engine and into the car yard. It's not that big of a deal, but I know it's just really frustrating. And the 4-hour parking wouldn't be good for any of the residents. Questions?
Okay, thank you.
Please help us out.
I have a question maybe for Ted.
Excuse me, he's got a question here.
Oh, no, that wasn't for the resident. Just Ted, are there other is there any other thing in like the building and safety code specific to that type of use and how they interact with the street and store vehicles?
Street parking is public parking unless otherwise noted. There are regulations that will dictate, how many parking spaces you will be required to have on site. But it doesn't preclude someone from parking on the street as well, unless there are limitations or restrictions. The auto repair shop, I believe, is under a very old code and was constructed in the early 70s, and they're still there. So they may not be what current code standards would be. But again, there's nothing that requires them to just park on their property, or nothing that precludes them, I should say, from being able to park on a public street.
Got it.
Any other? Yes.
Has the city council member for the area been notified of the issues? Has anyone contacted city council member Todd Lowenstein? He's aware of it? Okay. And then the second question I had was, has the city facilitated any conversation with the businesses to try to broker a conversation about the problems we're having? Or have the residents only communicated their problems with the business?
Well, I don't know what communications they may have had with the businesses, but we've not tried to broker anything
Okay.
between the residents and the businesses.
And has Todd Lowenstein connected with the businesses at all about this problem, or you're not sure? Yeah. Yes, Solomon, I apologize.
I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. So he didn't get back to you when you wrote to him, or?
When I wrote to him, he directed me to these
Got it.
gentlemen here.
Okay. All right. So as far as we know, the city has not communicated at all with these businesses about the problems that we're having.
No, and really what we're having tonight is the opportunity, because everyone was notified, businesses included.
Including the business.
That they are, if they're interested to come and speak and talk about their perspective or their view of it.
Okay.
All right. Other people who wish to speak? Say testify.
I was not planning on talking. My name is Danny Kubrick. I also live on the block. Probably the most recent resident I bought a couple of years ago. Like I said, I wasn't planning on talking, but a couple of my neighbors said a few things that really hit home. Honestly, on the way here, I almost got hit by a Porsche walking here. I'm like getting on my bike because they were looking for parking. They sped 65 miles per hour down the block only to turn around and whip around the other way. I literally put my hands up in the air because I couldn't find a parking spot. People are flying down, not even realizing that it is dead end. And so when one of my neighbors mentioned that, I was like, whoa, that literally just happened to me on the way to this hearing. It was insane. Another thing that I will say is, I don't know if other people are noticing, but there are now campers on our block that are not just there at night, but they're there during the day. We live in a beautiful community. This is not what I frankly paid for when I bought in. And I worked really, really hard to move here and be part of this community, not have campers in front of my house at all times of the day. That is crazy. If I wanted that, I'd go to Venice, not Redondo. I'll go to Santa Monica, not Redondo. A few times, I also work from home part-time. I pull up, I go get lunch. The 30 minutes I have in my day to go get lunch, to hop in my car, I come back and there's no spot on the street. That's crazy. 4 days a week, that's crazy. I am now afraid to get in my car to go get lunch because I will not make my next meeting because there are no spots on the street. That should not happen to residents who frankly paid a lot of money to live there. I hope you guys really help us come to a solution. We're willing to work with you. This is all literally like ad hoc. I'm being very honest and frank with what is going on. There is no enforcement. These cars, the dealerships, the auto body shops, my dad owns an auto body shop. I understand exactly what they're doing. They are cycling in cars in and out. And guess what? It's kind of smart on their part. They're using it as real estate that they frankly didn't pay for. But they are taking advantage of taxpayer dollars, our dollars that we paid to live there. That is unacceptable. Please work with us. I appreciate your time.
Other comments? Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Anna Henkel. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. I'd like to mention 3 points. One point is that about the speed. In fact, one of my neighbor's car was hit twice in the middle of the night. We didn't have cameras on. And surprisingly, in the morning, his car was completely dented. Another thing about the body shop is that sometimes they leave cars parked for like 3-4 days, and the amount of oil that is spilled on the asphalt is amazing. No machine, no street sweeping will clean that oil up. It's there for days, that oil, just staining our asphalt. Another thing is that sometimes pokey people, they grab their food and they come eat in their cars. So I've counted during the weekends, 9 people sitting right in front of my house eating. And then they leave behind napkins, plastic forks, plastic knives, and it's right there. So even during the weekends when there's pokey is a little bit busier, the amount of trash it's still on the streets, or they come, they don't have tables enough. Tables are full at pokey. They come and they eat in their cars, and we have small children, and we don't know what kind of people are just sitting there in front of our house eating. And also the amount of oil already is in our asphalt is amazing. So please help us out with this. Thank you so much.
Just a quick question. It seems to me some of your concerns have nothing to do with parking. I mean, you're talking about speeding. I'm not sure how parking, that would be impacted by parking problems.
Well, it's because they come to our street, they know our street is an easy parking, is Cul-de-sac Street, it's a dead end. Some people, they even park in our street to
Right.
get an Uber to LAX. So they park there for 3-4 days, get an Uber to LAX.
That I understand, but you were talking about speeding and and then now you're talking about littering from cars, and you are also raising concerns about oil.
Yeah, because those vehicles, they shouldn't be parking, taking sometimes 15, 18 spaces in our street as a business. So again, like one of my neighbors said, this is the south, the problem is the south side of North Gertruda. The very beginning, when you come from Catalina, there's so many parking spaces there in front of the public. And they don't use those spaces. They go all the way up to where the 500 block and they decide to park there. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Ricardo de la Espiella. I also live in the 500 block of North Gertruda. And one of the things that concerned me, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but was about the grandfathering of the permit of the auto repair shop. But the Land Rover business has only been there for a few years. Now, I don't know what the city code is on business, but aren't you supposed to have enough parking to supply for your customers when you get a permit to do business? And the reason I ask this is because I am an auto repair owner. And many years ago, I tried to open up a business in Hermosa Beach, and I did not get the permit because I was not able to have enough parking for my customers in the place of business. Therefore, I did not open in Hermosa Beach. So my question is, was the permit given to the Land Rover to do business grandfathering the old permit of the auto repair shop, or with the current business code that Redondo might have for auto repair places? And that's a question for you to figure out in consideration. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, seeing no other comments, I guess we should take a motion to close the public hearing. Is that the procedure, or would we?
My understanding from the council's procedure is you guys can deliberate, and until you're ready to make a motion, that's when you can close the public
Then
hearing.
we close the public hearing. Okay, because we can have, after we've deliberated, there may be.
You can still have dialogue with staff and.
Got it.
Right.
I have one more question. What is the third business that's over there? Just Pokey, Beach Cities Rover, and what's the third one? It says Eurosport? Okay.
There's also a Navigo, it's a financial planning business, which really doesn't have a lot of customers at the moment, but at any moment, they might.
Because we are recording, if anyone speaks in the audience, please come to the podium. Sorry.
Sorry, I apologize. So Navigo is a financial planning service. It's on the corner there in the historic building. They really don't seem to have many people coming in and out right now. That could change at any moment and also make it worse. There's also a basketball agency that runs one door in from the corner that has some clients that come in and out, but they're pretty quick, like Pokey. But neither one of those businesses could also, have more long-term people as well. So
Thank you.
hope that answered it.
Thank you.
So,
I had some questions of staff.
yeah, me too.
In this process of creating this preferred parking zone, how do the permits get issued by the city? Are those only offered to residential property owners? Is there an annual fee involved? And it also, on a side note, I think there isn't perhaps the appropriate enforcement of things now. And my concern would be you can put any kind of restriction or time limit, but until we get the support of the police department or traffic enforcement, that's a big part of this as well. At one point during the presentation, I thought, gosh, if we just enforced the 4-hour and the 72-hour, and we could even limit the size of vehicles, or we could say no overnight parking of motor homes, or, where people, dare I say, in the last couple of years, you may have homeless people sleeping in those motor homes on your block, and nobody really wants that. But there's other things we might come up with as a commission. But Ted, if you could tell me, what's the process in terms of the permits issue? Do you know?
Yeah, the answer to your first two questions is yes. There is a process, there is a fee in the establishment, and then there is an annual renewal fee for those permits, and they are only issued to the residents that live within the impacted block.
So a business owner wouldn't be able to buy a few permits for themselves or their employees. It would be residential. It's only available to residential property owners.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
It concerns me that the city hasn't had a conversation other than this letter with the businesses, because there, in my mind, I'm thinking about other opportunities that we can possibly work with RBPD to enforce the area, especially campers and the parking. I feel like it's a missed opportunity, and as much as I really want to do the permit, I know the headache it's going to be with Coastal Commission, and I feel like we're setting them up to fail almost. But I'm concerned that we haven't escalated it to these other things. We haven't tried these other things, which I'm completely supportive of a permit, but I'm concerned that we haven't gone through the right channels to even give them the support they need.
Right, and that's something, that is a motion that the commission can make tonight, to ask for that dialogue to occur, see what comes of that, either to come back afterwards in a couple of months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever the time frame is. But that could be one of the directions that the commission gives us tonight.
And the coastal mileage, because I just did a Google map, and it said it was 0.5 miles. What is the mileage of which they're concerned about?
It's not a mileage, it's
Or the
in the
distance, sorry.
coastal zone. If
Yeah.
it's in the coastal zone, then they're concerned about it, and we have
But
to go through.
what is the distance of the coastal?
It's not a distance,
Oh.
it's in the coastal zone, therefore you have to consider what their requirements are.
Are some,
What are the boundaries of the coastal?
I think it's
I think that's what I'm trying to find
west
out.
of
It's Pacific Coast Highway, and
Pacific
anything
Coast
to the
Highway.
west
West.
of Pacific Coast
Okay,
Highway.
so this is, we're one street away from Pacific Coast Highway. I feel like that's worth the dice roll to me. We're pretty close. Okay. That's just an opinion, by the way. Don't take that to the bank, but.
Other comments, questions, thoughts, concerns?
Yeah, it seems like parking is a main issue, but there's also a speeding issue. There's also like a potential homeless camper issue and just trash issue. There's multiple issues that are compounding to make it seem worse. The parking issue could be triggering the speeding, right? People speeding down, trying to get a parking spot, and realizing there is no spots, they speed back because they're angrier for having gone down the street. Speeding could be handled by multiple ways. We've done that here through speed humps, through speed feedback signs, through other methods to try to slow people down or force them to slow down. But it seems like the parking is still the fundamental factor here, right? That at least this community feels like there's a need to change so that a lot of their frustrations aren't being realized. I've been at the Poke Place. I've usually found a spot in their parking spot. Every once in a while I've had to go and park there for 5 minutes to pick it up and go. So it doesn't seem like that's really the main core issue. It's the auto body shops that seem to be the core issue. And so to a certain extent, I agree with Commissioner Nafisi that we should talk to them about their operations. I do support the district, but in addition, it's going to impact their business if they don't have spots. So maybe provide 1 or 2 spots on the street for them to use as a commercial spot, maybe commercial, I don't know if it's a commercial loading spot or something similar, right? As compromise, and the rest of the district be used as preferential parking. Just one thought I had. I'm sure it has an impact for them to have to walk down the block and, park down the block where maybe are more spots, or maybe that is the compromise, for them.
Yeah, if there's adequate parking for them up at the northern end of Gertruda, closer to the public yard,
Right.
then their mechanics just have to hoof it up the block to get that car.
Right, and that very well just need to be the compromise. I mean, it's not really even that far, a couple hundred feet isn't going to kill anyone. But I do think they need to be contacted regardless, because this is going to impact their business and they're going to have to change their operations somehow.
Commissioner Bajaj?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on both Commissioner Nafisi's and Commissioner Min's comments. Yeah, I agree that there should be some type of engagement with the business. I'm not sure typically if that's what Public Works' role is or if that's really what the role of the council member should be, but I do encourage this community to have another attempt to follow up with your council member and, really help facilitate that discussion. But, on another note, one thing maybe if any of my colleagues up here have some experience with, or even staff, I mean, I'm sure there's downsides to preferential parking. And so I would like to hear if anyone who has experienced it firsthand or what kind of downsides you see with it.
You go first.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
The question to staff, what is the annual cost of that permit fee to these residents? And are they aware that this will now cost them money to park on their street?
I don't have that number with me.
'Cause that's the flip side to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's 110.
Yeah, it's not something overly substantial, but yes, there is still a fee to that.
Yeah.
What if they can't afford it? Or if it's a senior citizen? Just asking.
I don't have the answer on that.
If there's no like sliding scale or anything for anything.
Commissioner Rock?
So I definitely have experience with preferential parking, and I'm not quite sure that the whole day would be the answer. I do think that we should look into the businesses and what they were grandfathered in, like the specific code on that for each business. Reach out to the businesses to communicate, to let them know. As far as preferential parking, I'm not sure if it's across Redondo from north to south, but the fee for the parking's like $25. I feel like strongly one of the biggest problems is the enforcement, because when you have the preferential parking, they ticket you like you got to move your car, and at 9:01 or 9:10 or whatever the hours are on my street, I mean, they're right on it. So I feel that a big help would be to get the parking enforcement on board with enforcing the 4-hour parking, and for the businesses to, if there's, to look over the codes of where they're allowed to park, and if they do have adequate parking. And preferential parking, I mean, there's good sides, but there's bad sides, even though, like on my street, for example, I'm in South Redondo, there's preferential parking, it's the same game. When the street sweepers move it, there's people on there and it's full. You still don't have any parking. I mean, I don't know. I have quite a lot of residents, or it's a lot of homeowners and tenants on our street, but it's still the same problem. So I'm not quite sure that that would actually, be the answer. But the answer, I do believe, starts with the enforcement and also the businesses to be able to communicate with them, reach out, whoever's going to do that, and really, enforce it, do the enforcements. And as far as the campers, I do feel like on my street anyway, it's still preferential parking, and there's campers and vans or whatever, several of them up and down the street. I'm definitely east of PCH, but being the location of the proximity of your residence, that is coastal commission. So that's kind of, that's gonna border that. And I mean, you have to also think if you want no motorhomes or none of those vehicles, that it's going to also impact you the day you want to have one or any of the residents there. I mean, I know you showed up, and I know there's other neighbors that aren't here, so I think that we should, I don't know, bring it back, try to enforce it, see how it goes, and bring it back.
I was going to make a motion. Okay.
Chairperson Simpson, before you make a motion, I wanted to answer a couple of questions that were asked about the impact of permit parking. As we mentioned, the request by the residents is to have it 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. There's obviously a whole slew of variations that you could consider for that. It could be 7 days a week. It could be Monday through Friday. It could be 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. It could be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's all sorts of variations of that you would do. I've experienced it in a location where it was a 24/7, and I can tell you when friends and family wanted to come and visit, those are royal problems for you because you have to, one, run to the city to try to get temporary permits in order to utilize them. I mentioned the other hours that if that's still the support of the commission to recommend to the city council, recommend something that's least impactful to the residents, where they believe it addresses their overflow parking concern, yet it doesn't impede on any social events that they may want to have during the other times.
Yeah, that kind of leans towards like an 8 to 6 Monday through Friday. I'm curious, does anyone know, does staff, do you know what is the automotive business open on the weekends? We know Just Poke and
I'm assuming they are, I don't know.
They're not. And that's what I would presume. Most automotive shops are, they might be half a day on Saturday or they might have Saturday, but
yeah.
Because that's something that does have to be publicized. It can be very cumbersome to residents when you have a party at your house. Now your guests can't park without a permit and you've got to go get, and if we're putting it out there. So maybe the idea of an 8 to 6 Monday through Friday. The one other thing though that I have a concern about is that this seems like there'll be a bit of a challenge from the Coastal Commission. And it doesn't matter if it's a block in or right on the water. If it's in the zone, then it's got to go to that government entity. And I'm kind of reading that it's a crapshoot, right? They might okay it if the presentation is framed towards them, but that we know how really they feel about coastal access. And we've got to be able to, someone has to explain or they have to kind of understand this is not a through street. It's not beach parking. It backs up closer to the harbor, the power plant and all the other things in the area. And it's only half the block. So I don't know, I'm thinking a lot out loud. I don't know how you guys feel about.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
And to talk about the businesses, brought something to mind. Another situation which you may know something about, Ted. On Inglewood, there was a problem between Artesia and around 166th Street. There were people who were selling cars and parking them on the street and rotating them around. How did that get resolved? Because there was some resolution that ended that, and it appears that somehow that may allow us,
That would have been, I don't recall the exact, but that would have been time restricted parking because you can't specifically target vehicles for sale. You can't prohibit vehicles for sale from parking on a public street.
They were just rotating cars in and out and had a whole row of cars with for sale signs on them.
Right, but if you have time restricted parking, we talked about 4-hour parking that exists there today. If that's 2-hour parking as an example, that becomes an inconvenience in those situations where they don't want to try to move their car every 2 hours.
So it's sort of like we're suggesting here that we may want to make it inconvenient for the auto body shop or for the auto shops to continuously, they're going to have to hire people to move the cars to keep them in motion.
Right, and that would obviously be if that's the recommendation of the commission and it gets approved by the city council, then we would be working with the police department and parking enforcement to ensure that happens.
Yes.
I just have a comment on the speeding. They just put one up in my neighborhood. I know that they had one on Prospect, one of those big flashing signs just to bring
radar feedback
attention.
signs.
Right, and also some enforcement on the speeding. And also as far as, you mentioned trash in the neighborhood, is there any can't, like, you know, the cement garbages like they have at the beach, so that people, pedestrians or whoever, has a place to dispose their
We don't normally put them
garbage.
on a normal public street, only because there's no concentrated point for it. You could be 20 feet away and somebody doesn't want to walk the 20 feet.
Right.
But, you know, from a street sweeping perspective, the streets are swept on a weekly basis. But yeah, we don't just put trash cans because it's too random at that
Okay.
point.
Commissioner Fisi, I think you wanted to
I was going to make a motion. Are we done talking? or- Okay.
See what your motion
The first motion would be to close the public hearing, and then you guys can deliberate on the motion.
I'll make a motion to close the.
need a motion to close the public hearing?
Any other further comments?
And generally, you get one turn at the
Oh,
speak, unless
sorry.
you've got a question for the resident, they don't get the chance to come back again.
Do we want to move the?
I have a question for you. What do you have to say?
I'm just saying, if they enforce the 4-hour parking for the residents, that's not a great solution for us, because then we're always worrying about moving our car and getting out there and moving it. So there's just, I mean, that's great for the auto places that they would have to move their cars, but for the.
But you're going to have to move yours
For the
too.
residents, yeah, I think that's, we all wanted to tell you that. That's not a
Not
great
helpful.
solution for us. And thank you for considering it.
Commissioner Fisi, did you want to make a?
Yes, yes.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
All right, second for that motion?
I'll make the second.
The 4-hour?
Okay, second, all in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
You can still deliberate.
Yeah, I,
Opposed?
No, now we need you guys to just please sit quietly, allow the
Public
commission to
hearing
do
is
their work.
closed. Now, you're going to make a motion.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion for the city to write the businesses about the issue that they're having, that these residents are having. And 2, request for additional PD enforcement on the 500 Gratuita block. And also enforce the no overnight camper code, oversized vehicles, and enforcing the 4-hour, well, I guess that's not helpful for you. So I guess just enforcing the no overnight camper code and the oversized vehicles.
How about the conditional use permit, seeing if they can reopen that and bring that up to date? That the auto body shop, the older one, has operated under.
I don't think I can make a motion for that.
And not only that, but again, those are entitlements that they have on the property. We can't regulate anyone from parking on the public street and connect it to the property's entitlements.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Let me finish my motion and then maybe you guys make a motion to amend. How about that?
Well, finish your motion.
Okay, all right. All right, so asking the Public Works Department to communicate with all the businesses that are impacting the residents. So that would be Beach Cities Rover, Just Pokey, Navigo, Eurosport, notating the issues the residents have had. And then 2, requesting RBPD enforce parking enforcement on the 500 block, the no overnight camper code and oversized vehicles. And then 3, I wanted to see if we could put, and I know you answered this question, some type of trash can at the end of the cul-de-sac. If that's not possible, I don't know if this, just ask Just Pokey, maybe they can place one there.
You know, they have outdoor seating and outdoor dining, and
Okay.
I'm sure they've
All right.
got a trash can.
So just, I guess the motion is just a written communication to the businesses of the problems that the residents are having. And 2, working with RBPD to really make sure that they're enforcing the parking regulations there. And I'm going to add a 3rd, I'm sorry, just ensuring that the council member is aware of the challenges that they're having so that they can work with the residents and the business owners to tend to it.
Do we want to make any kind of a motion to implement the parking that's being requested?
oh, the preferential parking.
We have a motion on the table. She just needs a
Is there
second.
We should discuss. Yes, discuss.
You want to discuss this? Much for, okay, go for it.
Yeah.
Unless someone has, or someone.
And you can do a friendly amendment. Anyone can add on to that.
My thoughts are, you know, for my particular area, it's enforced at night. So, I mean, that gives the residents, I mean, there's still people, because there's activity, but have the vendors in and out. And so it's at night and then it's over in the day. It's like on one side of the street, it's like 10 to 9 a.m. And then on another part, it's like 8 to 9 a.m. or something like that. But my thoughts are perhaps to do that. And also I thought about this for like some of the other streets that are a bigger area to encompass. And I think that you mentioned this before and you brought it up. One of the gentlemen said that the parking spaces, like people overtake, like, move your car, they can't fit. If the city was to assess the street to actually see if like different type of parking could accommodate more vehicles than how it is now, so that they were, in an assigned area rather than taking up 3 spots, which is a big problem on my street.
Yeah, I can tell you that when we mark parking spaces, we actually wind up losing potential parking.
Yeah,
Because there are a lot of smaller vehicles that hypothetically you can fit 3 in the space of 2.
Okay, right.
But when we mark them, they were obligated to mark them at a minimum 20 feet on the ends, 24 feet in the middle, and you can get more vehicles in a couple of 24-foot spaces than you would if you left it open versus being marked.
I believe we have a motion on the floor, right? You made it?
Yes, and if someone would like to add the permit, I'm happy.
I think we need to get a
But we need to
second.
talk about it. I just have a question. I mean, the community said that they were impacted like all day and all night, but where are they? I'd like to just know from the community, all right, it's closed, but I'd like to know, is it heavily impacted at night more than the day, or can I ask that?
Well, what we do know is from our evening surveys, the impact from the commercial businesses is slim to none. So whatever parking is out there is available. And I can say from my perspective, because I'll leave sometimes later in the evening from the Public Works yard, there's ample parking because our employees leave at 4 o'clock. Generally speaking, there's ample parking that's available on the street. I did want to add one more discussion item for you to consider, and that's the 4-hour parking. So as much as we want the police department to conduct more enforcement out there, we've heard from the residents that the 4-hour parking is something that's problematic for them if they have to move their cars, even though it's 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Just wanted to see if that's something you wanted to incorporate into your motions.
Do we want to recommend and further the preferential parking zone?
I would like them to focus on the oversized campers and the oversized vehicles. So I mean, the 4-hour, what I'm worried about is residents running around having to move their cars throughout the day too. That seems like it's gonna be challenging.
But now, they have come requesting a preferential parking zone, right?
Yeah, I understand.
And are we?
So all you have to do is make a friendly amendment for a permit.
I'll make the amendment to recommend a preferential parking zone 8 to 6 p.m. 7 days a week. And also to incorporate some speed control along the street, or have staff investigate other speed control measures such as speed humps, speed feedback radar signs, et cetera.
Okay.
That's my.
I would second that with a friendly amendment to make it Monday through
It's a
Friday.
friendly amendment.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday is fine.
Yeah, because it's pretty clear that the automotive business is the culprit. We can't, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. And it's not to penalize them, but to understand that their business is extending now out into the street, and they're not entitled
Impacting residents,
to all these different spaces. I mean,
So we've got, the motion right now is,
I was going to add, though, it's a new motion, actually, or an amendment to your, Commissioner Min, because if it's preferred parking, it takes care of the oversized. It takes care of, because no permit on that motorhome, and it's in violation.
That's true.
So you see how that encompasses everything.
So I'll withdraw my motion, sorry, but I do want to keep the written communication to the businesses to inform them of the challenges the residents are having. I do want to add that we want to add a permit from 8 to 6 p.m.
Monday to Friday.
Monday through Friday.
All right, so
Wait,
the motion
Commissioner
is,
Nafisi, if you're withdrawing your motion, the other motion maker would have to either accept that language or add it, but
Yeah, that's fine.
okay, so
Question.
have we now got a new motion?
Yes, we withdrew my motion.
And now
Putting a new motion on the
All right.
table was written communication to all the businesses
John,
and requesting a permit from 8 to 6, Monday through Friday.
Okay, is
Okay.
there a second to that? Yeah.
No, because I have a question. I mean.
We need to
they
make a
said that they're
second
heavily-
before we discuss it
question,
further.
okay.
I'll make the second.
Okay, so we got a motion and it's been seconded. And I think I know what the motion is, but
Can we repeat it?
Yes. The motion is for the city to communicate with the 5 businesses that will be impacted. Beach Cities Rover, Just Pokey, Navigo, Euro Sport, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the basketball place, whatever the name of that is. And the second part is that we are going to institute or apply for a permit with the Coastal Commission from 8 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday.
preferential parking.
Preferential parking.
And you guys have to correct me because one, communication to the commercial businesses, we don't have to name the specific businesses,
Okay.
but communication to all the
I
businesses.
just want to make sure they get it. That's why I named it.
Also have police department to do speed enforcement, to do parking enforcement, overnight concerns. Obviously, with the preferential parking, if that goes into place, then the overnight parking and the other issues would go away automatically. But for the time being, those were part of the motion that I understand is that they would address enforcement for overnight parking of oversized vehicles, speeding, and parking enforcement, as well as the Monday through Friday,
Preferential parking, 8 to 6.
8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday.
Right? Okay, that's the motion. It's been seconded.
But I feel that 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. isn't gonna, if in the evening, the survey showed that that's when they're heavily impacted.
Actually, it's just the opposite in the administrative report. It's the midday that is the peak and the challenge.
Yeah.
At nighttime is
It's-
not
it's
a
the-
problem.
It's not a
Okay,
problem.
I
It's just the
misunderstood
opposite.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So we got a motion. It's been seconded. Any further comments on it? Any thoughts on it? May we?
If you could amend to have staff look into speed control measures as well.
I think
Yeah,
she
that's-
included that, didn't you?
I didn't, but
Speed
I was,
enforcement is one thing, but speed control is a different, right? Like actual physical.
Well, those would be looked at first with the police department and their enforcement efforts, their trailers, before we consider any other measures.
Okay. All right. So I think we all understand what the motion is. I think that the folks, if we vote for it, would be getting what they want.
I just have a question.
Yes.
I wonder, rather than like, I mean, I heard that the commercial businesses are like abusing by parking so much. Why are they parking so much? Do they not have adequate space, or is it poor management of not making appointments, or?
Probably they're
Could be any of those or all of the above, honestly.
So how is that going to impact? And I'm all about for the
They won't be
residents
able to
to be
do
able to
it
park.
Monday through Friday from
Well,
8 to 6.
so-
They won't be able to do
I
it.
understand that, but how's that going to impact, if they don't have parking?
Well,
I mean, are they
It'll be
going to have
on them
available
to
parking?
figure it out, their business.
They can move down the street and.
They
park
can go up in
across from
front of the public
works.
Yeah, right.
About 8 spots.
So the clarification, just from like, is the limits is kind of where the public works yard.
Correct.
And so on the portion of the block north of that, there wouldn't be preferential parking. It
Lauren,
sounds
can you
like
share my screen for a second, please?
It sounds like there would be plenty of parking north.
So going back to the image, you should all see it now. It's the sort of purple magenta area from there towards PCH or towards Beryl where it's cul-de-sac. Nothing to the north.
Yeah, so to Commissioner Arada's concern, I think they're using the spots closest to their business because it's most convenient, right? But they would have to go just 1 or 2 properties up, just to park instead.
Okay, so we've got the motion. I think we all understand it. It's been seconded. I guess we should have a roll call vote.
Sorry. Commissioner Arada?
Aye.
Commissioner Bajaj?
Yes.
Commissioner Funabashi?
Aye.
Commissioner Nafisi?
aye.
Commissioner Glass?
Aye.
Commissioner Min?
Aye.
Chair Simpson?
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, so I guess that,
see what happens.
now that goes to the city council with the recommendations.
That will go to the city council.
Or if the city council could not go along with it. And where are we here on the agenda?
Just one more question, because Ted, does ultimately that.
Okay,
parking, if it
so-
was permit parking affect, can I just have a question?
Yes.
Because ultimately, if they do preferential parking for just residents on that street, does that affect the community that would be, part of the coastal commission is the only?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear the question.
So the coastal commission issue? If they
Yes.
do
Well, that's part of the
preferential
process,
parking?
right?
Yeah, that's the end of the process. If the
Yeah.
city council supports the
Then it
motion
goes-
of the commission, then it would be forwarded with a permit, with a coastal development permit to the coastal
And
commission.
they might turn it down.
Correct.
But, that's nothing we can do about that. So I guess we're now ready for item J2, is that correct?
That is correct. All right, so item J2 is
And
the,
perhaps a few folks would like to take a minute to,
Welcome. Thank you.
You guys don't want to stay? The rest of the meeting is really riveting.
our next item is an always stop request for the corner of Garnet Street and South Juanita. Our existing condition map, just to show you what conditions are out there. This is the block of Garnet between Prospect and Pacific Coast Highway. Every intersection between those two or arterial roadways is an always stop with the exception to the intersection of South Juanita and Garnet itself. At the location, well, this is just a blow up of the location itself. There are stop controls on Garnet, but there aren't any stop controls on South Juanita. When we did the investigation, we did determine that there are some site visibility control issues at the location. As you know, from our flow chart of the request for always stop controls, we have the petition process that the residents have to go through to get support from the residents within proximity of the intersection. At the same time that they're going through that collection process, our staff will look at the accident history and conduct a field investigation of the location to determine if there's anything that we see that could be problematic at the location to support the installation of the always stop, or if the accident history itself would support the consideration. In this particular location, we, at the staff level, made a determination there is a line of sight concern that we were seeing out there and wanted to support bringing the always stop control for you. At this location here, as you can also see on it says Garnet, on South Juanita, I think it's on the Garnet side, there are cross gutters. Those cross gutters are concrete swales that they're a dip essentially, and they force the vehicles to slow down. Yet as much as they force the vehicle to slow down, the vehicles that are trying to exit the side street on where the line of sight concern exists, makes it challenging for them to see the vehicles coming from the north side of the street. So that's the reason why we're supporting the stop sign here. In the 5-year accident history, there was one reported collision, and as much as we've heard that from residents in the past, there may be other collisions that are unreported, but from an historical recorded perspective, we only have one potentially correctable accident that occurred there. The line of sight issue occurs when you're looking from Juanita towards I believe it's the north side. Maybe it's actually the east side where, as you can see in the image, you've got the shrubberies, you've got the trees. Sometimes you have the trash container that's there. They are limiting that visibility for the drivers that are trying to exit or enter onto Garnet itself. We're going to be contacting the property owner to tell them to cut down on those shrubs. Those shrubs should not exceed 18 inches in height. So that should help. Nevertheless, we still believe that with the other elements that are there, that the line of sight is constrained. When you're approaching the intersection from the opposite side of the street, you are slowing down on the Garnet side. But again, you're not necessarily as visible to the driver that's trying to exit on the South Juanita side of it. There is a bit of an incline. The incline itself wasn't as significant for me as was the fencing, the shrubbery, the trunks of the trees, and the proximity of those trees when you looked on. The cross gutter, we talked about it. There are scrape marks that essentially confirm that drivers that try to go through the intersection a little bit faster, they will bottom out. The scrapes on the pavement will actually confirm that. Notification was sent out to 24 residents within the 150-foot zone for their feedback. 10 responses were received. The area that's shaded there is the area, those are the locations of the properties, and there are multiple addresses at those locations. Nevertheless, if they are their own residents, then they received a survey. And like we said, we did receive 10 responses to that. We also introduced something a little bit newer with the QR code. Make it a little bit easier and faster, rather than emailing the city, rather than having to put a hard copy back in the mail. It gives them the ability to electronically give us a response back, affirmatively or otherwise. And 6 of those 10 responses were received by QR code, which shows that actually that worked much easier and better than the other method. There were 2 additional responses that were received from residents outside of the area, and those are not identified or figured in the response rate that we were looking for. So the recommendation for the commission tonight is to consider the options that we've brought to you. Staff is supporting the installation of the stop signs because of the line of sight concerns that we observed. But the commission have the ability to either support staff's recommendation, not support staff's recommendation, have any other suggestions be provided, and then those would be forwarded to the city council for consideration. And that concludes our presentation.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to support staff's
We
recommendation.
need any public comment?
Oh.
And for the record, I don't remember Mr. Cole, actually, I remember him quite well.
Good evening, Commissioners, Director Simon. I don't know, were we supposed to sign in prior to?
You don't have to,
You don't
but you
have
please
to.
state your name.
Yes, I will. I know how this works.
Okay.
My name is Tony Cole, C-O-L-E. I live at 205 South Juanita. That is the third residence on the west side of South Juanita, directly south of Garnet. Before I want to do a little bread and butter. I was a city commissioner for 2 terms for 8 years. I know how thrilling and delightful it is for you to volunteer your time.
Can we get the timer, please? Timer?
It is.
I'll be brief.
That's
I got it.
Probably doesn't believe that I'll be brief, but I'll be reasonably brief. Simply to say that my spouse and I have lived at the address I provided for 35 years. We have wondered for most of those 35 years why there was no stop sign at this particular intersection, whereas the one immediately to the east, which would be Lucia, one walk past that is Prospect, and there's clearly a stop sign there. Anyway, I'm delighted that the city staff has reviewed this sufficiently. There are site clearance issues. The pictures that were shown really don't give the situation full justice. Sometimes, I mean, it's simply impossible to see until you inch out far enough that you're likely to be involved in a collision. Several of my neighbors sent their regrets that they were either out of town, or one neighbor submitted a letter, which I can pass to the secretary if that's acceptable. Also in favor. So a motion to receive.
Motion, yeah.
I'm sorry? A motion to receive. Oh, thank you.
Even file, yes.
Second for that?
A second, and we need a second?
Oh,
Need a
I'll make a
second?
second.
Thank you. The letter's from Mr. Tyler Hayden and his wife, who live at 207.5 South Juanita. They are all ill. They have a small child. And as those of you who have had kids know, those are living petri dishes, and you never know when you're gonna be unable to attend a public hearing. Lastly, my spouse, my neighbor, Barbara Hayden, at 207, and my neighbor at 203, Bob Travis, are here also in support of this sign. I don't want to go on incessantly. We again appreciate the commission's time, staff's recommendation, and we urge you to please recommend to the city council installation of a four-way at that location.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Any questions?
Got a question?
Okay, question for you, Mr. Cole. You've lived in the current house for some time now, and the adjacent streets have had their stop signs. What do you hope to achieve if we put in this four-way stop? What benefit that you, or what have you, what's the problem?
Okay, the problem is that, believe it or not, in the 2 blocks that, I'm sorry? 2 blocks between Irina and Lucia, the intersection in the middle of South Juanita, there's no stop sign. People actually try to make up for the fact that they've had to stop and stop and stop and stop. They have no stop. They plow through the intersection. As staff mentioned, we hear bottoming out all the time. There have been, this is an anecdote because accidents are not always reported, but we found pieces of vehicles that have fallen off. People either don't want to stop to bother or whatever, but there's evidence anecdotally that people drive too fast through that intersection.
The second part of my question is, I understand that. Do you believe that if the stop sign is put in, people's behavior will change and they won't do a running stop right through there anyway?
Yes, generally, I believe people will observe to a greater or lesser extent a boulevard stop. Most of the people do, as I observe, up and down Garnet currently. So.
So the main thing you're concerned about is the line of sight issues and the possibility of.
Yes,
as staff pointed out.
It's frequently an unsafe intersection in which to proceed. Unsafe, in my opinion, as an amateur traffic engineer. I did work with civil engineering and transportation for most of my working career.
Okay. Thank you. Questions, thoughts?
I have a question for staff. If we go through and make a motion to support the staff recommendation, I see that there's like yellow marked crosswalks at 2 of the legs, to add then yellow marked crosswalks for the new legs that will be controlled. Is that something we would want to add into the motion? Or is that something that staff would just kind of look at when they're going through the design and take it upon themselves to just install if it makes sense?
You could go ahead and add that to the motion, absolutely.
Well, then I would like to make the motion that if there's no other comments.
Comments, thoughts, questions?
I would like to make the motion, we support staff's recommendation and also consider the installation of the marked crosswalks across Garnet if the stop sign gets installed.
I second.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Do we need a roll
Chairperson
call?
Simpson, before you go there, we still have to go, not only ask the residents that are here if anybody else wants to comment,
Any
but if there's
further
anybody
comments?
else on Zoom or anywhere else that wants to comment.
Hi, my name is Barbara Hayden. I came right down to the city because I witnessed almost a terrible accident. All these kids are riding their electric bikes. And one man, his truck was pretty heavy. He was an older man. And he was looking down and one kid raced through the intersection. And then he started to go and another kid raced through the intersection, which he almost hit. And I was so shaken up by it because the child was almost hit right in front of me. I walk my dog in our neighborhood all the time. Every other street has a stop sign except ours, Juanita, practically. And I feel like a stepchild. Why are we not good enough for a stop sign? We're really close to Paris School. And I've lived there for over 40 years. I've always said, if anybody's driving, we don't have a stop sign, they don't have a stop sign. It's awful living in that situation. And I should have been here a long time ago, but nobody else had stop crosswalks and stop signs before. I just have to say, we got one by the surf shop, Dive and Surf. That makes the biggest difference in driving in our town. because everybody has to stop. And that would make a really big difference on our street. And, I'm just I'm like, why don't we have one? What do we have to do to have one? We have these kids riding their bikes. Maybe some will stop, maybe they won't. But people will stop, and everybody's confused whether they have to stop or not. And like I said, I've lived there so long, I can't believe only one accident has been reported.
Sorry.
But we definitely need a stop sign.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We're checking for other comments, I guess. Any other comments?
There is-
Are there any e-comments?
No e-comments.
My name is Diane Cole. I just have to say, it's a very dangerous intersection, and not just because there's not stop signs, but there's these dips. So people go barreling by because there's no stop sign, and you hear this like bum, 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 and I'm only 3 houses in, and you think, oh my God, was there an accident? I mean, one time I witnessed motorcycles going down there, and the guy just flew up in the air and fell down, the ambulance came. Evidently, they didn't report that one, but we see this kind of stuff all the time. And it really, something really needs to be done. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it, all of you.
Thank you. All right, so no other comments? We're all set, I guess
There's
then.
no e-comments and no one on Zoom, just for the record.
Okay, and so we did make a motion that we probably were out of order doing, right? I mean, you want to make the motion again?
No, we have
I
a
think you
motion,
guys-
it's
I
been
would-
seconded, that was just further discussion.
Okay,
Right.
all right. All right, so now
ready
we
for
can
vote?
call for a roll call vote.
All right.
I'll get this sooner or later.
Commissioner Arata.
Aye.
Commissioner Bajaj.
Aye.
Commissioner Funabashi.
Aye.
Commissioner Nafisi.
Aye.
Commissioner Glass.
Aye.
Commissioner Min.
Aye.
Chair Simpson.
Aye.
And just for disclosure's sake, I've worked with Mr. Cole when he was at Caltrans for almost 2 decades. Glad to see him. I did not know he was within the block or the area or even the petitioner for this request, but I'm happy to see him out.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay.
So much.
Be well, thank you so much.
We'll sleep better.
Thought I recognized him.
I just managed to.
You're in the Caltrans building?
You remembered him from back
I guess it's now
then?
that
Yeah.
time where we get to make referrals to the staff.
Before you go to the referrals, I do have a couple of other announcements to make for you. One is a question, and this has come up by the city council, as you may have understood or heard, that they made a motion to change the starting time for the city council meetings. That is open to the commissions for consideration. So my only question for you tonight is, do you want us to bring back a discussion item for you to consider changing the start time of the commission meeting from 7 PM to any other time?
I, for one, would say I have no interest in hearing that. I think 7 o'clock is a perfect time. And I can't understand why what's the city council's gone to 5 o'clock?
5:30, I believe, for the
mean-
nights that they, and irrespective of what time they decided to start the city council meetings, there's one other commission besides the Public Works Commission that starts at 6:30. So I just wanted to bring the question, because that is a question that's been being posed to the other.
We started meeting at 6:30.
Yeah, they're not a full commission. So again, I'm just bringing it as a question. If the response from the commission is there is no interest, it's done. There's nothing else to change.
Anyone interested in changing? I mean, I personally think
considering
7
the
o'clock is a perfect time. You get to eat your dinner before, and then you have a nice evening ahead, and
Make it home from work.
hopefully you get out by 9:30 at the latest. you know.
Make it from downtown or Hollywood.
I'd be happy to entertain it if anyone is interested, but.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a strong desire to have a discussion, if there's not a strong desire, I'm happy with 7 o'clock.
You know, I'm happy with 7. I mean, I won't talk, we can talk about it but
Well, I mean, we would only bring it back as a discussion for you then, but if the interest isn't here in the majority of the commission, then there's nothing to bring back. We'll continue on 7 PM as it's business as usual.
Okay.
Okay.
now is it, you got
One
other
more,
things?
one more from my perspective, and that's a first. I know we've got one more meeting with Commissioner Glass, but I thank you for the years of service that you've provided to the city as a Public Works Commissioner. We do have a new Public Works Commissioner that will be coming on board in October. His name is Andrew Beal.
He was going to come here tonight, but I got a text that he unfortunately couldn't make it.
We will be meeting with him just to introduce ourselves to him. He'll be coming to the October meeting as officially he'll be sworn in by the city clerk beforehand, but the October meeting will be his first meeting that he's able to attend. But I did want to add my thank yous to Commissioner Glass for the years of service he's
Can I ask
provided.
a question about, now, at the October meeting, we have a reorganization and re-elect the chairman and then select a new chairman. That all happens on the October meeting, right?
Typically, that's when it happens. You get to choose who your new chair is going to be for the next year and vice chair and so on and so forth.
Right. Just to put it out there, I'm thinking probably somebody else should pick it up and I should step aside for a
I want to
while.
mention, I didn't run for another term either, so the next month will be my last meeting too, as far as I
So
know.
we can be thinking about whatever.
Okay, well then, thank you, Commissioner Mini. I only know of one Public Works Commissioner that has been assigned to us. I will check with the city clerk to see if that vacancy has been filled or if we're going to
You're
expect
not coming,
something.
you're not coming up again? Are you still?
Well, you termed out, right?
I termed out.
Life is just a little too busy right now for me, so I need to cut some stuff and since there is a 2-term limit, one of these days I'd like to come back. I didn't want to waste that all right now.
Other things that you might have for us, Ted?
Nothing
Oh, I have a
further.
question that you might know an answer to. I got an email saying that there is an orientation for new commissioners and that we're invited to that if we wish to go. Is that, but presumably we already know what we're doing, so we don't have to go? Is that?
City clerk does extend the offer to all existing commissioners if they'd like a refresher. Are you mandated to go? No, you're not. I think it's primarily for the new commissioners, and like I said, anyone that would like a refresher is welcome to attend.
All right. Yes.
It's tradition. I do have a referral. I've got some questions, actually, Ted. In talking about the first topic tonight, the preferred parking areas, or whatever they're called, I noticed that there were several others that were in existence. Now, you also mentioned, I've been on this commission for virtually 8 years now. This is the first time one has ever been brought here. How long have those been in place and how were they approved if that was done during the 8 years that I've been on the commission?
There is one, because there's one that I know we brought forward, therefore you were commissioner during that same
Okay.
time frame.
I just
That
don't
was up
remember.
on Rockefeller,
Hmm.
near the
Yeah, sure.
Edison right of
I remember
way.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
Way
remember,
up,
but okay.
just south of.
I'm old and feeble, so
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it did go through the same process. It went through the commission,
Yeah.
defined the area, went to the city council, they had some more deliberation, and then they finally approved it.
okay. And then thank you for, recognizing my time here. I do want to tell you that I will be in the audience in the future. I've been having some discussions with people like my district councilman, the new one, Scott, and also with Chief Hoffman. My topics lately have been things like four-way stop signs, bicycles and cars that are going through four-way stop signs and three-way stop signs and what to do about it. And that leads us to traffic enforcement. So I'll be around.
Right.
Good. Other comments, referrals to staff?
I have a referral to staff. I had a conversation, some of you may know on Aviation and Ford, there's a traffic light there. And the commercial building on the ground floor on the southeast corner is the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles thrift shop. And I became aware that behind that is the 1700 block of Harriman. And for many years, they had a commercial parking zone that allowed people making donations to park their cars on Harriman. And the receiving warehouse for them is down below off that back street. Since they've lost the commercial parking zone, it's a red zone now. on Harriman, no one can park there. And people coming to drop stuff up for donations are having to park on rather busy Aviation, get out of their cars and start moving stuff out of their trunks and whatnot. So I guess that the referral to staff is what prompted the removal of that commercial parking, and is there any way to get it back? That's what the business there would like. And even they're not really aware of what transpired. They just know that their commercial zone parking was there. There's an old picture of the loading zone when it was yellow. Now it's all red and nobody can park there. I had suggested to the manager of the thrift shop that she, I believe it's District 4, that she contact District 4 councilmen to see how that might work. But if staff can look into that, I would.
We can, and I would recommend for the business owner to email the city at trafficengineering@redondo.org. Then I will get a copy of it, as will our traffic engineer, and we'll be able to log it. And we will definitely research the history to see what prompted that red curve.
Thank you.
It may be because the street dead ends there.
It does.
And they probably put the red so the cars could turn around even more.
At the end of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
We can actually research it at that particular point and provide that feedback.
But that may be why, but I mean, for years, the commercials, that's just around the block from where I live. I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, we just have folks that are challenged trying to make donations now because they can only park. And it has to be brought around the corner down below because the thrift shop's storage warehouse receiving area is not at the front of the building, it's down below, which is a whole separate entrance. So and that hospital, or the Children's Hospital thrift shop has been there for decades. And they're all volunteer staff. So when they mention, I just happened overhear the conversation and mentioned that I was on Public Works and they were asking, is there anything I can do? So.
You did.
Yeah, that would be the approach, that they can email us, like I said, at the traffic engineering email address, and we can take it from there and respond back to them.
Awesome, thank you.
Other referrals to staff.
I do have one. I want to thank you so much for painting the Keep Clear on Beryl and Paulina. Big help for residents trying to get out of Paulina. I wanted to follow up on the traffic light at Maria and Beryl. I know there was a temporary light. Do you know when the big guy's going to come in? The permanent light?
The new signal?
Yeah,
We've been working with our vendor on it. I believe they have been ordered. The lead time on those is 6 to 8 months, so it takes a long time.
Because it's been like 5 months.
Yeah,
Is there any
but they
way?
didn't order that immediately. I mean, first, they needed to determine the size and the type of pole that's out there.
Okay.
The old ones were not to current standards, we'll call it this
Right.
way. But I understand that those have been ordered now and they are on that lead time. Signals are functioning, they are temporary, but they are functioning. And there is another analysis that we're going to be conducting, or actually started. And there was a request to consider converting that from the signalized intersection to an always stop intersection. That may happen even before the signal poles are installed,
Okay.
but that would be coming back to you as a commission
Okay.
when that analysis is completed.
Okay. Until you get the light installed, is there any way that we could, the referral, I would like, can you connect with RBPD to do some more enforcement? Because people blow through that stop sign, and during school hours, we're just having a big problem. And I'm also the valet lady, so I see a lot of people just zipping, and I think they just come over right over the hill. And I just don't think they see the light. It doesn't hang over enough over the street for them to see it.
I've observed it a few times
Yeah.
previously. And first, to answer your question, yes, we will talk to the police department about additional enforcement.
Okay.
Especially when schools start. People's habits, sort of need to be reminded that, hey, this is a full signal. But even before the construction started out there, I see some people that you would treat that as a stop sign.
Yeah.
They would
yeah.
come up to a
No
red
one ever
light,
stops. It's interesting.
stop, and then proceed on, even with
Yeah.
a red signal that was there.
I think they
And-
just really don't see it in their defense.
like I said, I've observed them come up, stop, literally stop,
Yeah.
treat it like it's a stop sign, and then proceed on.
Yeah.
But
There's a
yes,
lot
we'll
going
talk to
on. So
the
I feel like they're
police.
looking everywhere besides the light in their defense. I don't know, just because I've spent time out there. Okay, and the third thing is, some residents were talking about, when they were talking about Gertruda, about sometimes there's public works guys parking on the street. It sounds like it's not the majority of the residents, but is there any communication that you can give to your department just as a reminder to kindly be mindful of the 500 block and parking there? Is that?
Yeah, and I'll tell you that this may impact us because we don't
Right.
have on-site parking available for our staff. It is fully, it's all of our equipment, and when they come in at the end of the day, that equipment needs to move. Our property is old. It is not something that had on-site parking available for the employees and the equipment that's there, and that's why that parking is critical. When I come in the morning, all of our staff were there before me. The parking is pretty well filled up. By the time I leave, there may be 2 cars that are in the entire north of the 500 block, let's put it that way.
So is that
So
a
we
no?
need that parking on the street. We cannot
Got
function
it,
without it.
okay. I mean, I'm not saying don't, but maybe maybe just like a courtesy email, just saying, hey, the residents came down, they're really upset. If you have the opportunity,
Yeah.
I think it would make them,
Yeah, no,
I
absolutely,
don't know,
because
it
I
would
don't,
just communication.
I'm not certain that they do to begin
Yeah,
with.
it didn't sound like there's very many, to be honest with you, but I just think, again, for me, communication's important. Making sure the businesses are aware that the problem's even happening. Who knows? I mean, I'm sure the mechanics probably have full aware of the problem because they're getting in fights with the residents, but just, I think clear communication, everyone of the problem it's having would be helpful. That's all. So referrals, just to communicate to the public works employees that are there that they've come down and they've expressed their discontent on parking.
Other referrals
No, thank you.
to staff? Yeah, on the side. I guess I have I have a question. What's going on in Grant Avenue now? The signals are being replaced at all the,
Grand Avenue is undergoing a change at every intersection. They signalized intersections are all getting upgraded. Traffic signal poles, every one of them is getting a bulb out. The bulb out has really become the better place to install the equipment itself. And the non-signalized intersections are also getting bulb outs to help reduce the width of the roadway for the people that want to cross the street.
yeah, that didn't come before the commission at all.
No, that was through the city council, and in 2 phases through their budget to do the upgrades, the installation of the bulb outs.
Second question, the gentleman who spoke early from the historical commission,
Yes.
have you got answers to him or, I mean?
No, he needs to contact me and speak offline because this is not something that we discuss at the commission level. It is, when people come up and speak under non-agenda items, we're not there to engage them.
Right.
He has submitted his public records requests. Those have been responded to. But if he reaches out to me, then we can discuss anything further outside of that.
Okay. Any other referrals at all? Yes,
Hey.
Commissioner Glass.
Clarification on something. Englewood and Manhattan Beach Boulevard. I sent a note and Andrew answered me and said that, because I questioned about the timing there. The problem is still people going eastbound, trying to turn left onto Englewood and ignoring the red light ignorance again. He said that the intersection work isn't finished yet. And I'm just wondering, when is it going to be finished so that they can move on to the timing of the lights?
Okay. There are 2 separate problems. First, the people that are running the red light, irrelevant of the timing that's there, people at the tail end of a cycle want to run the red light, then we'll be talking to the police department as far as that enforcement. Because irrelevant if I give them 16 seconds or if I give them 25 seconds or 10 seconds, there's always some people at the end of a cycle that want to try their luck and run the red light.
Absolutely.
The other work that we have pending is not impacting that particular movement that you're asking about. It is to improve the southwest quadrant of the intersection where it's a Mexican restaurant, I believe. There's the traffic signal controller and the service cabinet on that corner. There's a big traffic signal pole. That signal pole can't take the flashing yellow arrow indicator that we are upgrading the operation to accommodate. And because we need to touch that particular pole, we need to provide ADA access through the corner. The traffic signal controller and the pole preclude that from occurring. So the work that's pending is a relocation of the traffic signal controller from that corner to the northwest quadrant where the gas station is, an upgrade of the traffic signal pole, and improvement to the ADA access at that particular corner. We are primarily waiting for equipment to come in, as I mentioned earlier, 6 to 8 month lead time on traffic signal, and unfortunately, even controllers are taking that kind of time.
Thanks. I'm glad I'm not responsible for doing your job there.
Any other comments or referrals to staff or questions or whatever? Well, then, I guess someone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Glass seconds. All, I think we'll just do a voice vote on this one. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I guess you